It was announced this week that Mercedes Chief Technical Officer Mike Elliott will be leaving his role with the team. First as head of aerodynamics, technical director, and finally CTO, Mike made a huge contribution to the team's race and championship winning successes from 2012 to 2023. Throughout the lineup iterations of Schumacher and Rosberg, the addition of Lewis and then Valtteri and now George, Elliott's influence in the team has been defined by success and aerodynamics in unison with the persistently excellent Mercedes powertrain team. The blemish on that legacy will of course though be the rather less successful W13 and W14 cars of the last two seasons. But how exactly did Mercedes go from the reigning, defending, 8-time Constructors' World Champions to top 5 battles and persistent press pressure instead of perpetual praise? We did pretty well during the last big regulatory change into the hybrid era and performed well when we went from the narrow to the wide cars in 2017. While we have a good track record, my message is clear. We can't rely on past successes for this year's performance, but we can rely on our people, our culture, our structure, and our mindset to do the best possible job for 2022. It was a moderate statement by Toto at the W13's launch for the most part, cautiously optimistic, but in a fundamentally evidence-backed way. Both with the engine changes in 2014 and, as Toto said, the aero change in 2017, the Silver Arrow's technical department had a proven track record. Together, their powertrain and aerodynamic solutions were the best in the world, but could the powertrain have just been painting over the cracks of the broken aero? Well, at the W13's launch, Mike Elliott, undoubtedly off the back of a press officer's advice to engage both the fans and the sponsors with an optimistic briefing, said this: "Engineers love a challenge. It's a fantastic opportunity to do something fresh. In the aerodynamic world, normally you're chasing after little bits and pieces, but with such huge regulation changes, the gains have been coming in big chunks, which is quite satisfying. We've had a period of success winning the last 8 Constructors titles, and this is a reset. All the teams have started from scratch with the model provided by F1, and you don't get to carry over the benefits or fix the issues from last year's car, so everyone began this journey at the same level." So that was Mike Elliott's view, but while we're talking about pre-season predictions, who could forget Detective Inspector Sebastian Vettel's own expert analysis and tragic foreshadowing of the doomed zero-pod mini-wing concept back at the pre-Bahrain GP debut of the 2022 cars. So who was right then, Seb or Toto and Mike? Well, we saw pretty quickly in the opening rounds, right? The fight for the lead was now between the Red Bulls and the Ferraris, with Mercedes begrudgingly having to accept their new status as best of the rest rather than the leaders of the pack. The car would not have the privilege of controlling the pace in clean air or the advantage of being able to detune engine components to reap reliability gains. Zero pods didn't fully translate into 0 points, but on the curve that we have to grade Mercedes on, it pretty much did. The struggle to optimise and adapt under the new regulation set was far from unique to Mercedes, but it was the great expectations of such a powerful team that in turn put them under so much pressure. The Canadian Grand Prix of 2022 both provided the Mercedes drivers with the withering back pain of an OAP and Netflix's Drive to Survive cameras with their best scene of the season, the team principals bickering like schoolboys arguing over a GCSE tech and design project. But as we're heading into Brazil this weekend, we'll fast forward through the intermittent podiums and repetitive press quotes to the highlight of 2022 for Mercedes, their 1-2 at the Sao Paulo GP. George Russell's maiden win was a result that meant, since it was Mercedes' only win of that year, that Lewis's amazing record of winning a race in every season in Formula 1 was ended, though of course Lewis did survive a tangle with Max Verstappen on that day to round off a 1-2 for the team, Mercedes' first since Imola in 2020. But by the end of 2022, without fully expanding on the exact issue, Mike Elliott did concede that the team had made a crucial and costly error. You look at how we developed the car, and I can point to one moment in time last year where we did something where I think we made a mistake. What you're seeing in terms of performance and the way it swings from race to race is a consequence of that. That's a mistake we've known about for a while. It's something we've been correcting, and that's why our performance has gradually got better, but it's not something we can fully correct for a little while yet, and we'll do it over the winter. Alright, so that means Mercedes will be back to their winning ways in 2023 then. Once you get that fix in with normal side pods and correct Venturi tunnels, they'll be back at the front, right? For 2023, the Silver Arrows were back in black, with the W14 echoing their far more successful W11 and W12 designs in a way that also contributed to weight saving through greater quantity of exposed carbon fibre and less paint. Yes, that's right, the weight of the paint had to go. Starting the year more reserved and humbled by a P3 championship finish and a 30-point margin to Ferrari up in P2. Toto said in February, "Our hopes and expectations are always to be capable of fighting for a world championship. However, our competitors were very strong last year and we're playing catch-up. The W13 certainly had performance which we were never able to unlock and put all its downforce on the ground. our car performed very well at the end of the season. However, we still had the famous bouncing at some circuits and the car never gave the drivers good feedback, which limited them being able to really push. But even at the launch of the W14, people looked straight at the side pods of the Mercedes and thought it still doesn't look enough like a Ferrari, Red Bull or an Aston Martin to bring them back to the front. But what Mercedes responded with was saying that the upgrades will come throughout the year, not just changing the side pods but changing the entire airflow around the car to bring it back up to pace. And the first of these promised valuable upgrades came in Monaco, somewhere where intuitively you're thinking it can be really risky to bring an upgrade. If your car is going to end up in the barrier, you're going to lose all that money, all that cost of development, and have to rebuild all those new parts. But that was the context for Mercedes. They couldn't afford to not take that risk, to be reserved. They had to get the upgrades on the car as quickly as possible. And it was at Monaco where the not-so-zero-pod Mercedes took to the track for the first time. The intention was to improve airflow around the floor and the rear corner of the car, providing greater downforce with increased aerodynamic load. Mercedes then also had made major changes around the front suspension, altering the layout, lifting the top wishbone between the nose and the wheel upwards. The revised positioning was a way of integrating a cooling solution that feeds air into the new side pods, allows the engine to run at optimal temperatures and also the downforce to be generated in an optimal way. The second big upgrade package came in Belgium, and then the third finally at the now infamous COTA United States Grand Prix, where Mercedes' new floor design made headlines, first because of its innovation and potential performance gains, and then very later on Sunday night, where its floor plank was deemed illegal due to a low ride height. So did the upgrades work then? Well, this year Mercedes have improved from third in the championship to second, and for now they have a 22-point margin on Ferrari that they are keen to keep in the closing round. Lewis may also have the opportunity to kick Sergio Perez out of a job in Formula 1 if he can finish P2 in the championship, which is something that they weren't able to compete at all for last year. I'm sure after the copious headaches that the Mexican caused Lewis in Turkey and Abu Dhabi in 2021, it might be a satisfying achievement for him to bring home P2 and put the pressure on Sergio even more. And look, there's a reason I'm making YouTube videos, not in the factory at one of these teams, so I can't claim to have anything more than an interest in the story, and I hope that next year Mercedes do join the championship fight to make it more exciting. But in looking optimistically to next year, Lewis said after another great drive to second place behind Max Verstappen at the Mexican Grand Prix, "It's a great result considering we started from P6 and an amazing day for the team. We pushed hard and I'm proud of the whole team for their work. It's been a difficult couple of weeks for us, so to finally push and bounce back, the car felt much better today and the pace was strong." So that kind of interview, that kind of outlook on the car is so different to what we saw throughout most of 2022, and is a good sign for the future of Mercedes when you've got the drivers praising the technical aspects of the car rather than ruining them and waiting for upgrades. They're now getting the upgrades they wanted, finishing races legally, and being confident in interviews about the potential for next year. Lewis said after Mexico that he can't wait to get to Brazil, and hopefully they can continue with the strong pace of the car. And James Allison, the ex-CTO and current technical director who swapped jobs with Mike Elliott 6 months ago, noted that in the context of next year, it's important that we get off on the front foot in the next season. With 2026 bearing down on us, the car will need to be engineered in 2025. It's highly likely that the 2025 cars will be close cousins of the 2024 cars, so it's doubly important that the 2024 car is good. I feel like all of us have got a pretty clear-sighted view of what we want to do with the car. This championship, we haven't really made the impressive progress that, say, McLaren has, but we've been charting a path through the season that gives us a very clear idea of what to put right. That makes next year very exciting to look forward to, and this period of the year actually extremely enjoyable. Look, there'll be no single silver bullet for the Silver Arrows, and the perception that they're always one upgrade away, a few changes, a setup tweak away from winning races is far from the truth. But even in the past 2 years, in instances where they've not had the best car, what's clear is everyone else working at Mercedes is at one of the best teams in Formula 1, just not the best. What Mercedes are good at is getting the maximum performance capacity out of their cars. The performance capacity was just so far behind the field that, combined with the weaker performance of the team and much of the 2022 season being dedicated to learning what the issues were before they could even be solved, the team weren't able to put together an incredible season like they've done so many times before. But I think that's what I want to make clear, right? Just because the performance capacity of the car hasn't been up to the level of Red Bull and Ferrari, Mercedes have still been maximising it just to that lower level. So if you increase the the overall performance level of the W15 and retain the same capitalization rate of performance potential that Mercedes have had throughout their history, they're perfectly ready to be able to compete for world championships again. That's what Red Bull was so good at through Mercedes championship years and what primed them to be able to take over the reins of the championship in the last 2 seasons. And it's what Ferrari were terrible at throughout so many iterations, but seem to be improving under Fred Vasseur. And it's what will bring Mercedes back to the front if the W15 is a well-powered, predictably balanced and efficiently downforced racing machine. So subscribe to this channel and check back in with us after the Sao Paulo Grand Prix to catch up on all the action from around the grid. On our website crash.net you can find written Formula 1 coverage as well as analysis from all across the racing world. As always, thank you very much for watching.